Hey guys, hope you're having a great day today. Today is Tuesday. Happy Tuesday morning to you. I hope that your day is going well. My morning is starting out great. Got up, got to relax a little bit this morning, and then I'm like, all right, I need to start my day. So for those of you that don't normally watch, we live in Western North Carolina, and we don't usually see snow too much. Maybe once a year, maybe. And when we do, it's usually a lot, and then it melts and is gone. So we got over 9 inches this weekend, and now we're waiting for it to melt because we live up on a mountain, which means we can't really leave because it's like a straight down driveway. Our driveway scares most people, so it's a little more dangerous. Craig was up there shoveling, and he got the blacktop to show, which is good because now the sun will come in. Today will be sunny again, and hopefully melt some of that ice down there. But for now, we're stuck up on the mountain. But that is okay because it's warm, we have power. I can still make some videos for you guys, and then we can do something fun today. So today's video, I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I enjoy watching black and white movies. I love that whole nostalgia thing of that going on. And I don't know, I really like watching when they cook in the kitchen, when they make food, things like that. And I thought, why don't I do a video of different time periods and what they would eat? And so today's video is going to be what I ate in a day in 1940. So this will be a little bit different for a lot of people because when I started researching and looking online, I was like typing in 1940 recipes. It was very hard to find 1940 recipes. I thought, wow, there wasn't a whole lot of information. Like, you can go Google it right now. You'll come up with just literally a few. That's it. And I started looking up some videos, and everything was very different because it depended on where you were at. And then, like, if you think of the 40s, you know, you had the beginning of the 40s is when war started, World War II. And you started off going to war, so everything was rationed. Everything was not that much. And then by the end of the 40s, it's like convenience foods are brought into the picture. So there was just like a whole mix of things and a lot of different, you know, variety of things based on what actual year you picked. Just like now in our time right now, right? Like the last decade here of our life, like things were really good for a while, and then like boom, everything's really expensive right now and you have to ration out things. So I thought this might be something fun to do. It's good to do, like, to see how they would cook back then, that we can learn from that because they went through a time period like we are going through a time period. Like right now, food is on the rise and it's expensive. But does that mean we don't have to eat? No. Does that mean we can never have anything? No, we're not to the point of rationing where we have to like limit our things. You just make do with what there is that you can afford. So same thing like right now, things are expensive, like beef is more expensive. Don't buy beef, buy the chicken. Chicken is still the cheap price as it has been for the last few years. So you just kind of flip things around, eat more beans, that kind of stuff. And that's what a lot of what they did. And so I kind of scoured, I literally sat at Greg's shop. He was over there doing some work one night, and it was like 2 hours, and I looked and looked and looked and looked, and it took me a long time to come up with a meal thing for the whole day because it was so varied. So when the Second World War came around, let me give you a little bit of tidbit information that I learned when I was researching this. So the main concern of cooking was to make do with the least amount of ingredients. So you had to portion out food, which is good, and then reinvent grandma's recipes from the 20s and 30s. Now overseas, it was a whole different picture than it was here in America. They were on the point of starvation because of their leader, Leningrad. A lot of the people were starving, so they would eat anything. They would eat any kind of leather shoes, briefcases. They even ripped off wallpaper and would eat the glue because it was made with flour and water. And a lot of people even resorted to cannibalism. So that ended in 1944. It said when the starvation of over 1 million people died. Compared to that, Americans were very lucky when it came to food. So what I started looking up for breakfast. So a lot of people would do, you know, you were able to get certain things from the store with your little ration cards, but they were encouraged to plant gardens and, you know, have their chickens, have animals, things like that. So if they had that, then they had those kind of supplies were plenty, and then you just rationed in all the other ingredients. So for breakfast today, I was looking up, and I don't have it because I gave the Wonder Bread to Greg. This is not in the beginning of the 40s, this is more towards the end. Wonder Bread was a big staple in the 40s. I just was reading about it. It said that they actually stopped the production. They were selling on the shelves. The sliced bread was the greatest thing ever. And then during the war, whoever the lawmakers thought that instead of having the steel blades, they were going to put that to the war, so they stopped the production on the bread. And then they figured then that would put down the cost of wheat, so they could have more wheat for the war people, or for the fighters and things. And then they realized it wasn't worth it, so they allowed them to keep selling it. So I don't have Wonder Bread today. And because I can't get out, I'm just going to have to use Great Value wheat bread. I know it was more of a white bread. And then they would have margarine, which I don't usually buy. Butter was one of those things that you rationed out, so a lot of people resorted to using margarine because it was cheaper. So we're using Countryside Creamery. Tastes like butter. I'm sure everyone's gonna be happy. And then also what they would have a lot of is Spam, convenience Spam, because Spam was one of those things that they used for the troops. So that was one thing they rationed out. So then it came back to the home front. A lot of these convenience foods were started for our troops to be able to take and eat, and then they brought them back as they, came back. So a lot of convenience food life was born. So Spam. So we're gonna cook up Spam for breakfast with our toast and our margarine. And another thing that became very popular was concentrated orange juice. This was something that they realized they could package up and sell. So this was a big hit for a long time. And then I think it was in like 1985 when Americans realized it was too much to have to wait for this to thaw and have a frozen lump in a container of cold water. And so then they resorted to buying more of the refrigerated kind. So it was a little bit harder to find frozen juice. I remember being a kid and there was like a whole freezer section of different juices to get. Now juice is pretty much all ready to made. You can just buy it at the store. So different things. So that's what we're gonna have to. And then something else that came along was Cheerios. Cheerios in Wisconsin. So Cheerios was another staple that they had as well. So we're gonna have some toast, fry up some Spam, have some concentrated orange juice, and do some Cheerios for breakfast. That's gonna be what I eat for breakfast in a 1940 setting. So we're gonna take our Spam here, open this up. My kids, we bought Spam for when Brooklyn was making those, like they're not sushi rolls, but they're some kind of rolls. And so they had it once and they're like, I don't know about it. I remember eating Spam as a kid. I remember her dumping this out going, ooh, listen to that congealed thing. But if you fry it really crispy, it's not too bad. So let's slice this real thin and then we'll cook it over here on the stove. If I had a family of 6, that would be 6 slices of Spam right there. I could do it a lot thinner if I had to, but that would be 1 can of meat for everybody. Let's go cook it over here on the stove. Okay, something else I am gonna cook real quick because I'm making this breakfast for Greg as well, is some eggs. Now, eggs were one of those things that were rationed as well. If you had chickens, you were fortunate to have eggs and you could barter for different things. So eggs, I was looking up, it was 64 cents a dozen. So if you figure it's been 70 years, right? 70 years since 1940. For 64 cents a dozen, usually they're like 99 cents. Usually. I know they're a lot more right now. But that's like, what, 30-cent increase in 30 years? Not bad at all in prices, right? So, and the average income, I was looking up because I thought it really has gone up. Not right now. Maybe last year it was 99 cents a dozen, but the income has gone up huge. I was looking up the average annual mid-income was like $956 a year, like less than $1,000 a year. Where right now the average middle class income is like $33,000. So I know everything else has gone up, price of house, price of everything, but for that big difference from 1,000 to 33,000, 65 cents eggs for 99-cent eggs, that's not too bad at all. But we're just gonna cook these right here and then we'll cook our Spam. Now, if you lived overseas, they would ration out your eggs a lot. I was watching, there is a YouTube video of a 1940s housewife. She would say they got rationed 1 egg per person per day. So she made toad in a hole and she just split it over 2 pieces of bread. So it depends on where you're at and what was going on. So the eggs will cook easy. The Spam, you just let it cook until it gets nice and crispy and then you flip it over. So I'm gonna make my concentrated orange juice. This is frozen salad, so I'm gonna have to kind of smash it down, but I think it used to be 3 cans of water. Is that what it is? 3 cans of water. I'm gonna pour it in here, make some orange juice. The orange juice will thaw. I'll keep stirring it in there. So just a little quick tip, if anybody gets this anymore, I remember getting this when I had just a small size family. I'd put cookie dough inside this. I'd mix up cookie dough and store it in here and put the lid on and store it in the freezer. This was a really easy way to make cookie dough and just pull it out instead of just keeping it in a bag or something. This worked out really good. So I'm just gonna make up 1 orange juice until it's gone because I only have 1 little pitcher of it. So let me go flip my Spam. I don't know how you guys like your Spam, but I always like mine nice and black. Nice and crispy. So this is all done. I'm gonna put my toast in the toaster. Okay, while I'm waiting for my toast to pop up, what are some other little fun facts about prices for things in 1940? So the price of a dozen of donuts was 15 cents per dozen. So what is a donut? I think is $1 a donut, like Dunkin'. Yeah, so that's up a whole lot more. Bananas, they were 11 cents per pound. I think that they're only like 25 cents a pound at Walmart. Or are they 50 cents a pound? I don't know, I'm gonna have to look that up, but not bad for bananas. So what are some things that, like, because I'm gonna get a lot of different people from all over the world, what are some things that you maybe remembered or know of that were a big popular breakfast in the 40s for where you lived? Let's go get our toast out here, put some butter on it, or some margarine on it. So that is our typical breakfast right here. Now you got 2 pieces of Spam on here. Did you use a whole can of Spam on your family if you had a small size family? I don't know. And then again, if you're gonna use your eggs for something else, you probably wouldn't use them for breakfast, where we are gonna for lunch, but we're doing a mock thing here. So it just depends on what you would have. I think Spam and toast might be kind of plain, so I threw some eggs in there, but that's what people ate. And then bananas, you might have had these, you might have not. It was fruits and veggies. It didn't seem to be anything that they didn't have. It was like that was an excess of that stuff, but it was more of like your butter and things like that. So not bad. So I'm gonna go enjoy some 1940s breakfast, and then I'll be back and we'll do a 1940s typical lunch. All right, so we just took a break and ate breakfast. I had to laugh. Greg, he's like, what is actually Spam? And I'm like, I don't even want to know yet. I said, wait till I'm done eating and then look it up. So we did look it up. So Spam actually has only 6 ingredients in it. Did you know that? I did not know that. So I guess on the back of the can, let me get one in here. So this is interesting. I just looked at the Walmart one. It has more, but it has pork with ham, which is 1, salt, 2, water, modified potato starch to make it stick, sugar for flavor, and sodium nitrate, which that's probably not the best for you, but not bad for 6 ingredients versus, like, we looked up like what's a hot dog. Hot dog has a huge list of ingredients on it. So Spam is actually not that horrible, I guess in the whole scheme of things. So not bad. So I'm going to focus on my lunch now, that what it would have been like in the 1940s. And again, this would have been all different everywhere. So in 1940s, after the war, they encouraged people to plant victory gardens. I'm like, what's a victory garden? Now I remember my parents telling me about, like, across, Greg and myself live across the street from each other, growing up, and across my way and sideways from him was a victory garden planted way back in the 40s. And so my grandpa I had my uncle lived over, my great uncle lived over there, my grandpa's sister, I think that's what it was, grandpa's sister, and they had a victory garden over there. So there was an abundance of vegetables and stuff if you planted and grew them yourself, so which was kind of cool. So they would put those up in cities, and then people would go and help it, and then they'd harvest and take things back. There wasn't hoarders, there wasn't any of that. Everybody just shared in the work. They would restrict Americans to 28 ounces of meat per week, plus a limited amount of sugar, gas, butter, milk, cheese, eggs, and coffee. Not good. But they did have a lot of like instant coffee that came along as something, because they had that for the soldiers as well. So that was the influx of convenience foods. And then after the war, the production and sales of convenience foods just soared because people were home. They were doing more things at home. They didn't do a lot of vacations and things like that, but they were home, so they would just spend their money at home doing things like this. So it helps save on being in the kitchen all day long, and we know all about that. So for our lunch today, we are gonna make vegetable soup. So unfortunately, not unfortunately, I'm not gonna show it, but I have vegetable soup that I just made this last week. So I'm gonna heat this up. They didn't have freezing things like this, so they would have canned it, but I do have, so let's pretend this is canned vegetable soup that I would have canned myself, but this was made from an abundance of vegetables. So I just put cabbage in there, onions, mixed vegetables, anything I had extra in there. So I'm gonna heat that up for lunch today, and then we're gonna make some egg salad. So egg salad is something you can stretch. So we technically had our eggs for breakfast today, but let's pretend here and say that we would stretch them out, because you can take 1 good egg and stretch it out with some Miracle Whip and mustard and put on some bread and have sandwiches with soup. And then there was abundance, so we'll have some carrots and celery sticks to go with it. So we're gonna boil some eggs over here on the stove to cook the eggs for our egg salad, because I didn't think they had pressure cookers like our nice Instapots that we have today. They did have pressure cookers, but not like the Instapot. So we'll just boil some eggs over here. We're gonna let that boil right here. And over here, let's pretend I had canned vegetable soup. I'm gonna be putting my frozen vegetable soup in here, but I would make a vegetable soup from all the fresh vegetables from my garden if I was living in 1940 and feed this for my family. I'm sure soups were a huge thing to make because if you had an influx of vegetables, you can make a ton of vegetable soup with things, potatoes, things like that. We're probably very much on the rise to be able to do. So this is gonna be lunch. We'll be cooking this up and then we're making some egg salad sandwiches, have some veggies, carrots and celery cut up, and then have some soup. All right, so I'm still cooking lunch right here, my eggs, but just as I feel like a 1940s housewife, I feel like she would be diligent about getting her work done. And for myself, I know I still have things to do today. So I thought, we'll just pretend lunch is done. I could insert the clip properly, but I'll just keep rolling with this one. So something else they would do is make homemade bread. You could, like store-bought bread was popular to buy too, but making homemade bread, even now, it's cheap to make bread now. If you buy like real expensive flours, I guess it is compared to like the more expensive breads, but you can get a whole big bag of, I think a 5 pound, like a 5 pound, is that what a 5 pound bag is like $1.50 for flour. Let me see what it was back then. Flour was 25 cents for a 5 pound bag. So right now, I think Aldi has it for $1.50 a bag. I think I got mine for 99 cents at the discount store. So not bad on the prices. This flour back then, cheap flour right now, pretty inexpensive to be able to make. So I'm sure they didn't have bread machines like I'm going to use today, but I'm going to use today because it helps. You can make bread from scratch. I've done bread from scratch. Earlier videos that I did when I had a lot of them at home eating bread. We would make once a week bread. We'd cook our bread on Wednesday, bake our bread on Wednesdays, and have fresh bread for a few days for our family. That's just what we did every single week. So, but now we're just not eating as much of it. I haven't gotten the habit of doing that because it does take time to do, but we are enjoying a loaf with our dinner. So I'm going to put it in my bread machine here, and they wouldn't use like the oils and things like that, so they would use shortening. So I picked myself up some vegetable shortening right here. So I'm going to put the recipe on the screen for the one I'm going to use, and then we will try this one out specifically and taste it out. It's really delicious. The great thing about the bread machine is you just put everything into it and it will do its work. You got to put the wet in, let it sit for a few minutes so the yeast activates, and then add your flour and it's good to go. All right, so my bread is gonna have to sit for a few minutes till my shortening kind of melts in the liquid, just a few minutes. While that's going, my eggs are ready. I'm gonna do my eggs. Okay, so my bread is doing its thing. If it was not that it was 1940s, I'd be mixing it by hand, but thank goodness for the technology we have so I can do something else. So I'm gonna take my eggs here and smash them. I know they wouldn't have one of these, but they'd have a potato masher, probably like the metal ones my mom used to have, but these are just a little bit more efficient. So I'm gonna chop these up, put some Miracle Whip. They had mayonnaise, mustard, salt and pepper, and there's egg salad, simple. Now, if you had a garden, you would be able to get a huge bowl of vegetable soup because you would have an abundance of vegetables. So I'm gonna get a bigger bowl for soup. All right, this would be lunch. It'd be very filling. I'm already really full from breakfast, so this would be a very filling lunch as well. So bellies wouldn't be too bad. Lots of veggies, because if I had a garden, I would be having lots of carrots and celery and lots of vegetables. So if you didn't, you would probably take those off and just have more of the bread. And it might not be sliced bread, it might be homemade bread on your egg salad. But here's an option for a lunch in the day in the life of a 1940, what I eat. All right, so all cleaned up, had our lunch, we are good. Moving on to our dinner or supper, whatever you call it. So in 1940s, when I was Googling, looking, trying to find old recipes for what to eat, a lot of them like would substitute meat for like lentils, beans, that kind of thing to kind of stretch things. But a lot of them would have meatloaf, because you can take meatloaf and stretch it with some like soda crackers, oatmeal if you had it, breadcrumbs, that kind of thing from old stale bread, and then be able to feed your family that way. So for tonight's dinner menu, we're gonna have meatloaf. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, because potatoes, they had a lot of potatoes, so potatoes were in abundance, and they also instant potatoes came into play because that was again for the soldiers. So when they came back, they started doing those too. So we're gonna do instant mashed potatoes because we have liked those the last time we made those. And then there was abundance of vegetables. You had some canned vegetables, so I'm gonna do green beans as our side, and then we're gonna have our bread, and then we're also gonna have dessert. One of the things that they had was coconut cream pie. Remember, you see a lot of videos where they take and smash things in the pie, look like a cream pie. It's because coconut cream pie was very, very popular at that time. So that's gonna be on our menu for tonight. So first I'm gonna mix up all of my ground beef mixture to make some meatloaf. We haven't had meatloaf in a long time, so this will be interesting. First, I'm gonna chop up an onion, smash some saltine crackers, and then mix it in with my meat. Got all my ingredients here in the meatloaf. I know that they didn't use plastic gloves to mix their meat with. I have gone too long without these, and so I used to always mix by my hand, and someone said, why don't you wear rubber gloves? And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So I'm wearing rubber gloves. They didn't do this back then, or maybe they did. Maybe they wear those long ones. I guess if they have those for washing dishes, they just might. So I'm just gonna mix this up really simple. So I'm gonna bake this in my oven for about an hour and 15 minutes. Meatloaf does take a while. Make sure you put your little crease in there so it doesn't have to worry about cooking through. Take it out, you're gonna pour some of your grease out here. They probably would have used shortening to grease their thing. I used cooking spray. I don't think they had this. They might have. So let's put this in the oven, 375? 350. So one of the great positive things about modern day is that you can create another second meatloaf right here. I'm gonna put it in the freezer for another time. I wonder how many like freezer prep, they didn't do freezer preps, but they did canning things. So how much were they able to save some time by putting these together? I don't know that answer, but that wasn't in my time. I don't think they did many freezer meals because that wasn't in abundance. So the other thing, my meatloaf has to cook for like an hour and 15 minutes. So I'm gonna wait on the mashed potatoes and the green beans and make those a little bit closer, but I am gonna get the recipe out for coconut cream pie because that'll take a little bit of time to make. So let's get the step out to make that. Okay, so when you go to make a recipe, especially for a specific video, and you don't have the ingredients and you're snowed in, so you can't go down and get them, it's like, that's okay. You make do with what you can. That's what those ladies in the 40s would do too. So I was going to make my coconut cream from scratch pie because that was a 1940s pie that I found, and they also had like a chocolate cream one to make it from scratch too, but for some reason I forgot some of the main ingredients, like half and half, and they had coconut, you know, just different things that I forgot. So I do have, so then I'm like, okay, what exactly do I have? I have Jello pudding. So if a 1940s housewife would have one of these, she'd use these. So basically, you can make your own pie crust. I bought mine. I have 2 deep dish ones here. I'm gonna bake these in the oven, and then I'm just gonna mix up. I don't even have whipped topping. I know, what is pie without whipped topping? We're just gonna have to live. That's what we're gonna do. So making this, and I'm gonna add coconut flakes into it, and toast some to put on the top, and then I'm gonna do a couple chocolate, you know, so that's what we're gonna do, because that's what you do when you improvise what kind of things. But they didn't have a lot of sweets. It wasn't like, because sugar was rationed, so it was kind of rare of the things that you had, but you were able to make pies, things like that, to stretch and have things as a treat. All right, I think one thing that we can agree on is that women of the bygone areas, mostly women because they were the ones in the kitchen, spent a lot of time in their kitchen. I've been in my kitchen for a while today, like a while, and I still don't even have my breakfast, lunch, and dinner done. So, and dessert, we're getting there, but it's taken some time. So the pie crusts are almost done in the oven, so I'm gonna be taking those out, and then I'm gonna take my coconut, put it in the oven, and toast it. So again, look up an old-fashioned, real from scratch coconut cream recipe and chocolate, and you'll find some. I would, but I've got the mix right here, and since I don't have the whipped topping, I feel like it won't be as good as like instant, but we'll see. That's okay. So what I'm doing over here is I'm boiling my liquid. I'm gonna make my mashed potatoes right now because, you know, why not? My bread is almost done. It's rising up really good in there. So I've got my dry stuff in the bowl here, my liquid over there. I'm gonna pour it all in here, then whip it up with the mixer, get that done. So the potatoes will be done. The meat has got a little bit more in the oven, and then my pie crust can sit for a little bit and cool, and then we can add the pudding, let them sit. So just get done because we're in here for a long, long time. They definitely did their dues in the kitchen. So next thing I'll be mixing up my instant mashed potatoes. All right, so I spiced up my instant mashed potatoes because I know if I make them plain, no one's gonna eat them. So they didn't have any of those ingredients. They didn't have chicken bouillon, readily available sour cream, cream cheese, butter like I'm using, but I did use some of that figgy butter up too. So this will be good. These taste delicious. It's just we made them at Thanksgiving, I think, the instant ones. I don't know, whenever I made them last, and they were so good. Souped up instant mashed potatoes. So here they are. Delicious. Still got food going. I'm gonna be ready. So I'm gonna start mixing my pie crust. Or cool, I'm gonna start mixing up the puddings for the pie crust. Okay, the only bad thing about doing cooking from the 1940s is you have no idea how the recipes are going to turn out and so, where those recipes came from. So my bread dough was like fluffing up and it plopped down in my thing. So it was a little bit too much, so I just took it out. I'm going to knead it, make it into a loaf, put it in a pan here and put it in the oven because this will contain it. That was like going up and touching the top. So you do what you gotta do. Okay, you just adapt and overcome. So that is all over there. I'm gonna put it on my stove because the oven is on so it can rise up. So that obviously was a little bit too big for my bread machine. That's okay. What are you gonna do? So what I'm gonna do now is, because I'm waiting on my meat is almost done, I'm gonna open up canned vegetables were something they did have. Not so much at the store, they could get them there like for people that lived in that didn't have like gardens, but you could can your own. So I'm gonna do green beans and then a little bit, there's already salt in there. I'm gonna add some garlic powder for flavoring, and I'm actually gonna add bacon pieces because I have them. Back then, they would have not, but I have to kind of soup these up so my family eats them, or this is just a waste of food for our family. But if you would have had bacon, which you could have had, a lot of them save bacon grease, like the bacon fat. Like, I think a lot of Southern women will save that too, and then use that for cooking. So you could have saved the bacon fat, then use part of it to flavor your beans, and that would be really good too. But since I don't have bacon fat, I'm just gonna use bacon bits. They didn't have these, but this will work. So I'm gonna put those all together, and then these will just go in the oven too with the meatloaf, which is almost done. And we're gonna be good. We're gonna have a great little dinner tonight. Okay, so for my meatloaf, it is done cooking. So now I'm gonna add a topping to it. So the old-fashioned recipes, it would have been ketchup. Like, I don't think they would have added much brown sugar because sugar was rationed. So I'm pretty sure it'd just be ketchup, maybe mustard. But again, I have to adapt this so my kids eat the food because they will not eat it if it doesn't taste good. So Jaden, she just ate the mashed potatoes and said, these are approved. But I guarantee if I would have made them the real way, she would not be eating them. So it's okay. So I'm gonna squirt this. I'm gonna put brown sugar in it. Wouldn't for 1940s, but again, adapting for our family. Okay, some other random fun things about, since we're on the 1940s videos, different foods that were first introduced in the 40s. Cheerios, like I said this morning. This is Paul's frozen fish sticks. I had fish sticks growing up. Minute rice, because that saved time. And then Ready Whip whipping cream, which I should have had for my pies, but we're gonna enjoy plain ones. Packaged cake mixes started coming out later on. And chocolate, M&M chocolate candies, peppermint patties, Whoppers, Junior Mints, Jolly Ranchers candy. And deep dish pizza came out in the 40s. I didn't know that. And then something else I found was like Jello. I think in the later years, as I do these videos, like gelatin would come out more, and it was Like if you type in gelatin in the 40s, yeah, you just threw like barbecue gelatin. You threw a bunch of stuff together to kind of stretch because you didn't really have all the stuff to make your family nutritious, and at least gelatin had some nutritional value in it. So you would use that and just mix a bunch of food together, which, you know, you'd make your little mold of stuff, but that didn't seem very appealing to make today. I thought maybe I'll do Jello later on, but make it more of the fun things versus like, I think it was like barbecue Jello salad. It just did not look, no, I couldn't do it. So we're just gonna skip that one now. So my food is finished except for the meat, and my bread will go in the oven, and then my dinner's gonna be done. My pies are set up. We're gonna have delicious food. And then also when I was Googling a couple more recipes, they said served with applesauce. I have applesauce. Now they wouldn't freeze this, but they would can it because you would do that. So we can have applesauce with our dinner tonight of meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, homemade bread, applesauce, and then we'll have pie for dessert. That'll be delicious. So we'll wait till these are done and then show you what the finished product looks like. Okay, so my day is coming to an end, finally in the kitchen. I was like, long day cooking, but I was waiting for my bread to cool off so I can cut it. Okay, this bread, I was wondering why it rose up so fluffy. When I was typing up the recipe online, it was 1.5 teaspoons. I added 1.5 tablespoons to this. So it smells a little yeasty. When you add too much yeast, obviously it's gonna fly up a little bit. So I'm gonna slice a little bit of this, put all my food on a plate, show you what a typical dinner looks like in the 40s. All right, had a plate of that food. It is delicious. I'm like, oh, I haven't had meatloaf in a long time. Mashed potatoes were so good. Green beans, very flavorful. Everything was very, very flavorful. It helps to add some spices to things to help liven up, especially like right now. If you don't have a lot of, if you have a lot of plain foods, add a lot of spices. Introduce new things to it to like liven it up a little bit. So it was delicious. And then the chocolate and cream pies, ugh. You can't go wrong with those. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Just something a little bit different, the 1940s, what I would eat in a day. I guess depends on where you live, because I'm sure a lot of people will have a different comments of the different typical areas that they lived in. So you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Remember, you're designed, created, and selected by God to do great things on this earth. It's a good thing when you find out what that is. So have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Bye.